Camus believed life had no meaning, not in a dark way, not as a crisis, as a liberation, because he argued that the moment you stop searching for a meaning that was never there, the moment you truly accept that the universe owes you no explanation, no purpose, no grand design, something extraordinary happens. You become free, not free in a vague, motivational poster sense, free in the most concrete, practical, daily sense, free to build, to choose, to create meaning that is entirely, unapologetically yours. This is absurdism. And if you've never encountered it before, I want to warn you about something. It might rearrange the way you think about everything. Most people hear the word absurdism and think nihilism, hopelessness, the idea that nothing matters, so why bother? That is almost exactly backwards. Nihilism says there is no meaning, therefore despair. Absurdism says there is no inherent meaning, therefore, finally, you can stop waiting for someone to hand it to you and start building it yourself. Camus was not a philosopher of despair. He was a philosopher of defiance, of joy, of the stubborn, radical refusal to let the silence of the universe dictate the terms of your life. And today, we are going to walk through exactly how he arrived at that conclusion and what it means for the way you live. Chapter 1. The Absurd. Camus began with a very simple observation. Human beings have an insatiable need for clarity, for meaning, for someone or something to tell us why we are here, what it all adds up to, what our suffering is for. And the universe is completely, utterly, indifferently silent on the subject. He called the collision between these two things, our hunger for meaning and the world's refusal to provide it, the absurd. Not absurd in the sense of funny or ridiculous, absurd in the philosophical sense, a fundamental, irresolvable tension between what we need and what reality offers. We want the universe to make sense. The universe does not make sense, and no amount of intelligence, faith, or willpower will resolve that gap. The absurd is not a phase, it is a permanent condition of human existence. Now, Camus said, given that this is true, given that the absurd is real and inescapable, what do you do with it? And he identified three possible responses. The first, physical suicide. Camus rejected this immediately, not on moral grounds, but on logical ones. He argued that destroying yourself because life lacks inherent meaning is to let the absurd win. It is the surrender that requires no courage. The second, philosophical suicide. This is what Camus called the leap. Choosing to believe in something that transcends the absurd, a religion, an ideology, a framework that provides meaning from outside. Camus respected this more than the first, but still rejected it, because it requires you to close your eyes to the truth you have already seen, to pretend the tension doesn't exist. The third, the one Camus chose, the one he spent his entire career articulating, is revolt. To see the absurd clearly, to accept it fully, and to live anyway, and with full intensity, full passion, full commitment to the life you are already living. This is where the liberation begins. Chapter 2. The Myth of Sisyphus. To explain what revolt looks like in practice, Camus reached for a myth. Sisyphus, the figure from Greek mythology condemned by the gods to roll a boulder up a hill for eternity. Every time he nears the top, it rolls back down, and he begins again, forever. On the surface, this sounds like the bleakest possible story. A punishment, an image of futility so pure it almost becomes comedy. Camus had a different reading. He said, Sisyphus is us. The boulder is our work, our relationships, our routines, our daily efforts that accomplish something and then require us to begin again. The hill is time, and the gods who sentenced him are the indifferent universe that never explains why. But here's the thing Camus asked us to consider. What if Sisyphus is happy? Not because the situation has changed, the boulder still falls, the hill still waits, the gods are still silent, but because Sisyphus knows exactly what the situation is. He has no illusions about it. He doesn't spend his descent begging the gods for a different fate, or bargaining for meaning, or collapsing under the weight of a question that will never be answered. He turns back to the boulder with clear eyes. And in that clarity, in that full, eyes open acceptance of his condition without the addition of hope or despair. He is more free than anyone who is still searching for an explanation that will never come. The boulder becomes his. The hill becomes his. The act of pushing becomes in its own strange way an expression of who he is rather than a punishment imposed on him. Camus ended his essay on Sisyphus with one of the most quoted lines in 20th century philosophy. One must imagine Sisyphus happy, not resigned, not defeated, happy because he is the master of his own fate in the only way that truly matters. He has refused to let the silence of the universe determine the quality of his inner life. Chapter 2. What this means for you. Let's bring this out of ancient Greece and into the present, because the practical implications of absurdism are more radical and more useful, Yuan, than most people realize. If there is no inherent meaning in the universe, then there is also no inherently correct way to live. No template you're failing to live up to, no version of yourself you should have been by now, no external standard against which your choices are being measured and found lacking. Camus called this total freedom, and he meant it as good news. Most of us spend enormous amounts of psychological energy searching for the correct path, the right career, the right relationship model, the right level of ambition, the right way to spend our limited years on earth. We search for it in philosophy, in religion, in other people's lives, in productivity systems, and life frameworks and podcasts and books. And the search itself, the assumption that the correct answer exists somewhere outside of us and we simply haven't found it yet, is what exhausts us. Absurdism doesn't say, give up the search and accept meaninglessness. It says, the search was always the wrong activity. The meaning was never waiting to be found. It was always waiting to be made. That shifts everything. It means the question isn't, what is my purpose? It is, what will I choose to care about? What will I build? What will I commit to? Not because the universe endorses it, but because I have decided it matters. And that commitment, chosen freely, in full view of the absurd, is the only kind of meaning Camus believed was genuinely available to us, which is also the most powerful kind, because it cannot be revoked by anyone else's argument. It doesn't depend on external validation. It doesn't require the universe's approval. It is simply yours. Chapter 4. Revolt, Freedom, and Passion. Camus built his philosophy around three words that appear again and again in his work: revolt, freedom, passion. Let's take each one. Revolt is not anger. It is the ongoing refusal to accept the terms the universe is trying to impose on you. It is waking up every day knowing that life is impermanent, that suffering is real, that the clock is running at you, and choosing to be fully, completely alive anyway. Not despite those things, alongside them. The person who keeps working on the thing they love, even though nothing is guaranteed, that is revolt. The person who commits to a relationship knowing that loss is inevitable, that is revolt. The person who creates something, art, a business, a family, a community, in the full knowledge that one day it will all be gone, that is revolt. It is the most honest way to live. And for Camus, honesty was everything. Freedom is what follows from revolt. When you stop searching for external permission to define your own life, when you release the expectation that the universe will eventually confirm your choices or validate your direction, you discover that you have always been free. The constraint was never real. It was the expectation. And passion, this is perhaps the most surprising part of Camus' philosophy. Because you might expect a philosopher of the absurd to counsel detachment, distance, the stoic acceptance of things as they are without excessive emotional investment. Camus argued the exact opposite. He said, because life is short, and because nothing is guaranteed, and because the universe offers no transcript of what matters, you should want everything from it. You should throw yourself into your life completely, feel things deeply, care without apology, love without guarantee. The response to impermanence is not to care less. It is to care more consciously, more deliberately, more freely than you would if you still believed you had infinite time and a guaranteed purpose. This is what makes absurdism profoundly different from the philosophy of resignation people sometimes mistake it for. Camus was not counseling you to lower your expectations. He was counseling you to raise your aliveness. Chapter 5. The Absurd Hero. Camus had a name for the person who lives this way fully: the absurd hero. Not a hero in the conventional sense, not someone who wins or who is recognized or who leaves a legacy that outlasts them. An absurd hero is someone who looks directly at the condition of human existence, finite, unexplained, impermanent, and refuses to be diminished by it. They do not escape the absurd. They do not resolve it. They carry it with them everywhere they go, but they carry it without letting it weigh them down. They have made a decision that the silence of the universe is not a sentence. It is simply a fact. And facts, unlike sentences, do not determine how you respond to them. Camus found absurd heroes everywhere. In Sisyphus, obviously, but also in Don Juan, who loved fully and repeatedly without demanding that love solve the problem of meaning. In the actor, who inhabits a role completely, knowing it will end at the final curtain. In the conqueror, who acts decisively in the full knowledge that all actions are temporary. The common thread is not what they achieve. It is the quality of their engagement. They are completely, unapologetically present in their lives, not waiting for conditions to be right, not searching for a more meaningful version of existence that might appear once they have found the correct framework. Here, now, with everything they have. And here is the thing that I think most people miss when they first encounter Camus. He didn't write about the absurd because he thought the universe was cruel. He wrote about it because he thought human beings were extraordinary, because he found it genuinely remarkable that a species capable of asking the deepest questions in the cosmos, why are we here? What does it all mean? What is the nature of consciousness? Can also choose to keep going in the absence of any answer. That capacity for revolt, for defiant, clear-eyed, passionate engagement with life despite everything, he found it beautiful. He thought it was the most human thing we do. Chapter 6. The good news. So, let's come back to where we started. Camus believed life has no inherent meaning. And I want to say this clearly. He thought that was good news, because it means you are not behind. You have not missed the purpose you were supposed to find. There is no version of yourself you should have become by now that you have somehow failed to be. The search is over, not because you gave up, because you understood that the thing you were searching for was never hidden. It was always being created. By you, in every choice you made, everything you cared about, every relationship you built, every morning you decided to begin again, you were making meaning the whole time. You just didn't recognize it as such because you were still waiting for the universe to confirm it. Camus died young, 46 years old, in a car accident in the south of France. The unpublished manuscript he was working on was found in the wreckage of the car. He spent his life arguing that the brevity and impermanence of existence were not tragedies. They were the very conditions that made genuine engagement possible. If you had infinite time, every decision would be weightless. Every commitment could be deferred. Every moment could be exchanged for another. It is precisely because time is limited, because this is the only life, this is the only afternoon, this is the only conversation, that any of it means anything at all. One must imagine Sisyphus happy, and perhaps, if you are willing to let go of the search for a meaning that was never there, one must imagine you happy too. If this is the kind of thinking that keeps you up at night in the best possible way, subscribe. We cover philosophy, psychology, and the ideas that change how you understand yourself and the world. And share this with someone who needs to hear that the absence of inherent meaning is not the end of the story. It's the beginning of the interesting part.